Hi, I'm Lhadon.
I'm Tendor. Welcome to our nation.
News and analysis on the state of Tibet. Today is February 28th, and we have sad news for you. I'm sure most people have already heard by now, but today we'll just be talking exclusively about the self-immolation of a young Tibetan monk in Ngaba, in eastern Tibet, in Amdo, or what is the Chinese called, they call Aba in Sichuan province. So we'll be talking about Tape and his incredible sacrifice yesterday in Tibet. But before we go to that, we just want to update you on the candle vigil, the protest of the monks in Mangra at the Lutsang Monastery. We understand that there have been at least 3 detentions. We're hearing reports that 3 monks or 3 people have been detained in that incident.
Yeah, in the morning, I think at the main monastery in Ngaba, which is Kirti Monastery, the monks, about 1,000 of them, gathered for their prayers on the third day of Losar, the third day of the Tibetan New Year, and they were barred from entering the monastery's main prayer hall. So they decided to pray outside, and then again, their disciplinarian, along with the local party bosses, they came there and they, pleaded the monks to go home and not pray there. So in the end, all the monks sort of dispersed reluctantly and started going to their houses. And somehow at about 1:40 p.m., it says that I'm reading from a press release that SFT sent out just this morning. A Tibetan monk was shot by Chinese police today after he set himself on fire at 1:40 p.m. Beijing time in Ngaba town in eastern Tibet. According to eyewitnesses, Tape is the name of the monk, in his 20s from Kirti Monastery, was shouting slogans and carrying a homemade Tibetan flag with an image of the Dalai Lama on it when he set himself on fire at the crossroads of the main market. Eyewitness reports indicate that the police fired 3 shots at Tape after he set himself on fire. So this monk is only in his 20s, so very, very young, and he's from Ngaba, and as of now, it seems that it's yet unconfirmed whether he's been killed.
Yeah, and I gather from people who were on the scene, they really were getting ready. They sat down outside that prayer hall when they were told they couldn't have their prayers, and they were just getting ready to go ahead with the prayers as they wanted to do them. It was an act of defiance, but they were convinced by especially older monks who pleaded with them to disperse, and so they did. And it was just minutes after that, I gather, that Tape came out. I think that we actually have some information that just came to us, basically saying that from another perspective in the town where people saw him, that these witnesses are saying that Tape was shouting, "Long live His Holiness the Dalai Lama, free Tibet and China out of Tibet," before he set fire to himself, and that he also had a sign around his neck that said "Freedom," along with his homemade Tibetan flag that had His Holiness's image in the middle. Um, this witness said that he was shot by the soldiers, and they put the fire out. And the reason that we're all saying it's unconfirmed if he's dead, although we're assuming he died, is that there is no confirmation that he died. But people are assuming that, and already many, many hundreds of monks have gone either to his home village and also to his room in the monastery to do prayers for him. Even yesterday, they'd already made that move in the afternoon yesterday when I was here. So now this person is also saying that posters actually had appeared in the streets of Ngaba town that seemed to be related to this in the days leading up to this. And these posters said, "We have decided to die for the truth on the third day of January," which is really interesting if that's true. Um, Now, there's a huge, huge military presence in Ngaba. Some saying at least 10,000 armed forces, because this area is a hotbed of resistance. Last year, we saw incredible protests in Ngaba. There are many monasteries and many, many villages and Tibetans in this wider Ngaba area that participated in incredible protests last year in March, and of course, the police cracked down, and dozens were shot and killed, and the very graphic, disturbing photos of Tibetans shot and killed by Chinese forces in protests last year, most of them came out of Ngaba, and so this just leads us to want to talk about, discuss, and give you a little background about why one would do this. Why did Tape do this? Why does a 20-year-old Tibetan monk light himself on fire, set himself on fire in protest? This is something that we actually has happened very rarely in our Tibetan history that we know of. One of the only incidents of self-immolation that we even know about in Tibetan history is Tupten in India in 1998, who self-immolated in Delhi at the Tibetan Youth Congress hunger strike, when I guess it was around the time the Indian police were moving in to take the hunger strikers away after 49 or 50 days. And he ended up dying in the hospital later that day or the next day. But other than that, we haven't really heard of self-immolation. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but in Tibet, right, Tendor?
Not that anyone has heard of, and I think it's usually, because of our own Buddhist culture, I think most Tibetans, the way we think, and especially the monks, they're known to have a lot of patience, tolerance, and capacity for just dealing with general kind of suffering. And I think when monks are driven to this kind of edge, this kind of desperation, it really reflects the level of repression and the suffering that's going on inside Tibet, that even Buddhist monks are no longer able to survive or tolerate this kind of repression.
And at the same time, I would say that in doing this, Tape was actually, he was obviously desperate but he was also expressing. It was an act of defiance. It was a political act, an action that for him was a contribution to the cause, so to the Tibetan movement, to Tibetan freedom, so clearly, a choice that he made, and I think that why he made that choice. What does it take for one to burn one's own body? It goes against human instinct to cause harm to yourself, not just to kill yourself. Okay, people do that, but in such a way that causes so much pain and so much suffering. Why was he driven to this? And I feel like we have to look at what's happened in Amdo Ngaba, and especially to the monks of Kirti, as an example of the intense repression the Tibetans are under, and the constant humiliation and abuse and violence and all of the indignities that they have been subjected to by the authorities.
But I think the main thing here is, for us to once again rededicate our commitment and energy to the cause of a free Tibet, so that this kind of suffering doesn't have to continue to afflict the 6 million Tibetan people. And these are all people who don't live to see the result of their effort. They die in prison, they get shot and killed, they get tortured to death. But I think the best thing we can do for them is to carry on their work, so that at least their children will get to see the dream that they worked for.
So yeah, in Tape's name, we rededicate and recommit ourselves to work even harder for justice in Tibet, because that's what this is an issue of justice. And this is Our Nation for Friday, February 27th, Saturday, February 28th. I'm Lhadon from Hong Kong.
Tendor here from New York. Thanks for watching us.